Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sauradeep Sarkar, your host for today's webinar. It gives me immense pleasure welcoming you all to the live webinar on the theme of Rock Your SOC with Watson for Cybersecurity. This webinar is hosted by IBM, and for the duration of presentation, all participants' line will be in listen-only mode. And after the presentation, we'll be having a question and answer session. And your feedback is very important for us, so kindly submit your feedback at the end of the webinar. I would like to now hand over the floor to Mr. Budayan Chakrabarti, who is a product lead, Security Intelligence, Threat and Compliance from IBM, and he will share his insights on the theme of the webinar. Thank you, and over to you, Budayan.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Bob, and I'm the product lead for the Curator suite of products. Now, in today's world, whenever we are talking about Security Operations Center, popularly known as SOC, what is the expectation out of SOC? You expect a Security Operations Center to be the nerve center for your security incidents. You expect your SOC to point out the security breaches that are happening in your environment, and then you expect your analysts. Those can be your level 1 analysts, level 2 analysts, or they are also popularly known as threat hunters. You expect your threat hunters to be able to analyze and remediate those security incidents. Think about it in this way. Let's say you see an IP address. You see an IP address which is connected to your network. It is a malicious IP address, or you based on the incident that has been generated, you feel that this might be a malicious IP address. Your level 1 analyst or level 1 threat hunter, what he does is he picks up that IP address, starts researching or starts getting more information about that IP address. What the first place is going to look at, trust me, based on my 10 years experience with SOC, I've seen people actually Googling out that IP address. I've seen our level 1 analysts actually going to Google and typing out that IP address and figuring out if this IP address has been reported anywhere else or not. A bit smarter analysts might be search for that IP address in a honeypot type of solution. And even smarter would go to VirusTotal and try figuring out whether that IP address is a known malware's IP address or not. This approach sounds good, but there are two main problems in this approach. First is the time it takes for the analysis to happen. You go to Google, you don't get any reference. You might go to a honeypot solution, you still don't get any reference. You might go to some other third-party security solution vendor or a threat feed type of solution that can be something like a deep site and try searching for that IP address. Rather than completing your investigation within minutes, you will take up to hours to figure out whether that IP address is actually bad or is it good. That's the first problem. That is delaying the analysis part. Second is the accuracy of such analysis. Think about it in this way. I'm going to say, for example, if I am a level 1 analyst, I've got a security incident and I need to remediate that incident within a specific SLA. I see an IP address which looks to be malicious. I'll go to Google and type out that IP address. First page, I'm thrown with a sea of results. First page, I'll check very quickly, do I have any information about that IP address which says that it is a malicious one? No, fair enough. I go to the second page of the search result. Second page, if I don't see, I'm going to assume that this IP address is safe. It might be that that IP address was referenced in the third page of your Google search. That is the problem when you do a manual threat hunting of security incidents. The time it takes as well as the accuracy. That is where cognitive intelligence for cybersecurity comes in. From IBM, cognitive intelligence in the form of Watson for cybersecurity. Think about Watson as a guy who has been fed, who has been trained, and is being continuously trained, continuously fed with millions and millions of security incidents that are happening on this World Wide Web. He is being fed with thousands of security-related articles, security-related blogs that are being written on different websites, on different blog posts. All these are being fed, all these are being read by Watson. So that's the reason your analyst now, with Watson for cybersecurity, your analysts don't have to go to Google and do a search and then do the manual analysis that I was talking about. He will just ask, do you have any information about this IP address? Watson will tell you, oh, you know what, this IP address was referenced on this particular date, and these were the files, and these were the hashes of those files that were down, that this IP address had sent, and based on, let's say, something like a semantic deep side, this looks to be bad. Or based on X-Force, this looks to be bad. That analysis is done immediately by Watson. So the analysis of your threat hunters, which previously would have taken an hour, now comes down to minutes. And Watson is not going to decide whether I'm going to look at the third page of the Google search or whether I'm going to stop at the second page of the Google search or not. Watson will always give you the same true answer. That is what Watson for cybersecurity is all about. We have got Vijay and Carlos who are going to take us forward for Watson in cybersecurity. I'm going to hand over the floor to Vijay.
Greetings, everyone, and thank you for being here today while we talk about empowering your SOC with cognitive technologies from IBM. So, why cognitive? What are the motivations behind it? Well, we all know that we don't live in a friendly cyber landscape. Here's some statistics, but we hear about it in the news. Equifax recently, and before that, Petya and WannaCry. Our organizations are dealing with an increase of volume and sophistication of threats, and we don't have the ability to scale our skills, our resources to be able to address that. We found that many of our organizations ignore these alerts. They are not able to investigate them. The attackers stay so long on our network, whether they're doing recon, whether they have an open exploit underway, open breach underway, these are all significant problems. So what we did is to understand this problem even more and better, we actually did a cognitive security study last year. And as part of the study, we went around the world, talked to CISOs as well as security managers in multiple industries, and we asked them, what are some of the challenges that you deal with, and what would you like to solve? What's your gap analysis look like? And out of that research report, we were able to bubble up 3 main gaps that our customers are dealing with. The intelligence gap. What are the information sources that I need in order to take action at any point in time? Do I have enough information? Do I have all the information? And oftentimes, the answer is no. Even if I'm consuming threat feeds, even if I'm consuming research reports, the analyst, at the point when they're dealing with an incident, they need to be able to apply that knowledge. How to do that effectively. Speed. Now, if I have so much data that I can potentially apply, which one's relevant, and can I do that within that 15-minute window when I'm looking at an incident and making a determination whether to escalate or dismiss? Have I, and because I'm operating in such a time crunch, am I making accurate decisions? Do I have full context? Did I miss something? Even if I identified the problem, I picked a resolution, did I address it completely? Or am I going to set myself up to be a repeat victim of the same attack? So given all of these elements, we at IBM looked at how are we going to help our customers address it? Now, in order to do that type of assessment, we have to take a step back and look at the entire life cycle of the cybersecurity operations that we have within our organization. We get lots of information from multiple various systems, IT systems, as well as some external sources. You got to take all that information and zero in on what might be anomalous, what might be security incidents to pay attention to. And that's in the threat and risk detection area. Interesting observation is that in this threat and risk detection phase, many of our systems today are instrumented, whether it's our IDS IPS systems, whether it's our vulnerability scanner systems. Many organizations have deployed SIMs. All of that information is coming at a very fast pace. Now, the second phase, in taking all of those incidents and evaluating them, assessing them, to filter out the noise, potentially bubbling up false positives, filtering out false positives and bubbling up false negatives. How do we do that effectively? And that falls into the investigation and qualification phase. This area, this section of the life cycle is often very manual. We rely on security analysts, Tier 1 to Tier 3. They're doing security monitoring, they're doing incident escalations, they're doing the analysis. But they're more and more likely to get overwhelmed, whether it's the sheer volume or the sophistication. Organizations are having a hard time scaling. We are in a negative unemployment industry, and for that reason, then how do we find people to scale out these teams elastically as our security postures require it? How do we train them? And many of these analysts may have biases, whether it's due to experience, due to lack of skills or training requirements, whatever they may be, we need to be able to overcome them. And last, but definitely not least, incident response. How do we make sure, once we understand that problem, how do we trace through all of this and respond in an effective manner? What we did is, as we dive deeper into each of these phases, we take a use case-based approach. These use cases include, in the threat and risk detection, include being able to do anomaly detection, being able to do baselining, identify new types of threats. And there's a lot of data and a lot of analytics that are driving automation in this space. And in the investigation qualification phase, we need that increased mechanization. But a lot of cognitive tasks that we're relying on human beings to do are still very hard to scale out and do it quickly, effectively. And that's the problem. So we have focused our attention on first in applying cognitive technologies on is how do we quickly, consistently, accurately, and at scale investigate and qualify incidents that we are alerted to during our threat and risk detection phase. Whenever we reach the limits of manual capabilities, we turn to technology. But as you know, as we look through all of these various tasks, they don't lend themselves to the traditional notion of automation. And that is why we have relied on human talent to do so. When we look to augment our security analysts, their productivity, so that they don't feel mechanical, we have to turn to a new type of technology, a technology that has the ability to learn, that is able to understand data that has been generated for human consumption, that is able to follow a reasoning process, almost like the scientific method, where it is able to formulate a hypothesis, as it collects evidence, either validate or refute that hypothesis, evolve that hypothesis, and iterate. And that is how we think about cognitive security. So cognitive security is a segment of the overall artificial intelligence arena. To help position cognitive security, let's take a step back from an analytical standpoint and look at how we got here. From a security standpoint, we use grep, right, on single systems, logs on those single systems. We've evolved to very powerful search mechanisms across multiple types of data, logs, flow records, packet data, vulnerability information, et cetera. But search is the underpinning for ad hoc investigative analysis. Then we moved into basic patterns, being able to look at patterns and be able to, so that we're not always repeating the same type of searches over and over again. But searches can be brittle, pattern matching can be brittle, and so we moved into how do we get logical completeness, and so we looked at rules as a mechanism to do so. Now, if our organizations were static, we would achieve that logical completeness. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we're all operating in a dynamic business environment, and new systems come online, users evolve. So you need to start learning these rules on an ongoing basis. What's the good path and what are the malicious paths? And so we start getting into behavioral analytics, which can be driven off of statistical approaches or machine learning. And, of course, in machine learning, they can be supervised or unsupervised. And now we're moving into deep learning techniques. But up until this point, all the way up to behavioral analytics, we're all focused on recognition. Recognition of a piece of malware, recognition of a spam, recognition of a deviation from a peer group norm. What we need to get to the next level is to perform reasoning. And you look at all of these analytical approaches, while it can operate well in structured and semi-structured data, it requires, you need to get to that next level where you're performing natural language processing. Natural language processing for the goal of doing inferencing, deductive reasoning, and then being able to educate and teach a system about a domain. And in this case, we're focused on the security domain. So going back, all the different tasks security analyst does, we have started to organize it into a flow. What are the phases of that investigation? So we can start to look at how do we facilitate and augment the work of our security analysts, of our customers. When we observed security analysts, what they do first when they get an incident is they perform local analysis in order to understand the interactions, activities, behaviors before and after the incident may have occurred on their local environment, the systems that were used, the assets that were potentially affected. Once they have a better understanding of the local context, they then start looking of what are the pieces of information that they need from the external world. What IPs do they need to research? What files do they have to investigate? Sometimes they look to their more senior people on their team, or potentially they might consult experts externally. They might go to their favorite search engine. But they're essentially doing data synthesis and threat research, and it could be time-consuming. Finally, once they get all of this information, they need to, again, refine it, prune that data, what is relevant to that incident at that point in time. They might have to take a lot of reading, a lot of input, and then filter it back down. So what we have done is, in that middle piece where, from a threat research perspective, well, we want to be able to provide that to our customers in a consistent, scalable fashion. So we created Watson for Cybersecurity. Watson for Cybersecurity, on an ongoing basis, builds up a massive knowledge base of security content. And it's getting information from threat feeds, from research reports, blogs, which are all unstructured data, and it's getting it from crawling the latest news, the latest updates in the security space. So not only do you build a historical view, but also you get a best analysts, being able to have the information of thousands of the latest current security information available at their fingertips at any point in time. That's what Watson for Cybersecurity brings for your security analyst. Now, all of this power needs to be applied in the context of an investigation. So what we've done is we have pre-taught all of the all of the models, all of the mechanisms for investigating and exploring all of this knowledge by incident. So we navigate this massive knowledge graph using and triggered off of QRadar Advisor. QRadar Advisor is an application that sits on top of your QRadar environment. It automates that local analysis. It automates looking up information and consulting with Watson for Cybersecurity of the information that's relevant for that incident. And it refines that information and does and brings that in a concise way, presents it to users. It's a white box as well. Most of the time, when we allow automated systems to perform work, we need to be able to validate that it's accurate. So QRadar Advisor with Watson for Cybersecurity not only investigates and summarizes the results, but it shows what is the evidence that it used in order to arrive at that assessment. Last but definitely not least, it also allows you to retrace the logical approach that it employed in order to arrive at its conclusions. With that, seeing is believing. So I will let my colleague Carlos take you through a real live demo. Carlos?
Okay, yeah, let me get the screen share working, and I'll show you a demonstration of QRadar Advisor. And you guys should be seeing the QRadar system with a series of offenses. We're going to take a look at these first offense. As BJ described, there is a lot of information coming to the analyst, and QRadar does a good job of sort of highlighting this offense to the analyst. So normally, you will go into the offense, and in this case, QRadar was able to correlate this malware event against this user. The user is either knows stuff, and if an analyst was doing this investigation without QAdvisor, he would normally, look at the details. Okay, there was abuse detected, but it was left alone by the system, which tells me, oh, so there's probably going to be some work for remediation that I'm going to have to pass to my tier 2. And I also see that even though that was a user within my VPN POS user group, so he has access to the POS systems. What the analyst will do to begin with is do some searching around those events. Pull the events. Okay, so here we see multiple architectures across what I can see as 3 different systems. But I want to know what else happened around that time. So the analyst might do a search around those IP addresses. as PJ commented, this is a very manual exercise where I'm just trying to expand my search and trying to look for other IOCs or other events that are at the same time. Okay, so now I have more information. So there is some user behavior concerns. Obviously, this Ivan Nostal user did not only fire a virus signature on one system, but he did it in 3 different systems. And when I look at the source IP addresses, he did it over multiple IP addresses. And I see that happening in Kubernetes. But as you can see, this is a very manual exercise. And then maybe the analyst goes and does a search at one of these IP addresses. And I haven't even gotten into looking at the actual event. If I go into one of these events, the analyst will see details about maybe the hash file, maybe the actual file that was affected as a virus. And the analyst probably will look at this hash file and run it against something like VirusTotal. Okay, yeah, it is bad. There is some products out there that are able to clean it. I might look at the details, but very soon for Tier 1, they will say, okay, this is a real issue. I'm going to pass it to Tier 2, and my recommendations are going to be clean the system and also maybe do some education for the user. Now, I want to bring you back to what would have happened if I would have used Kubernetes Advisor and done some dead research with the help of QAdvisor. I've run this analysis before, and I'm going to show you the results and sort of the difference. When I was looking as an analyst, as a Tier 1 analyst, the different triggers, the signature triggers, and the hash files, I was able to identify that it was bad, but I was not able to identify connections between those files. Kubernetes Advisor is able to do that for me. So in the Watson-Borg cybersecurity corpus, it was able to find connections between the different hash files on those different systems. And it was able to tell me that, oh, this is not just any malware. These different malware files are all correlated, or they all point to a campaign and actually a black POS, which is a known malware that attacks point of sales and steals credit card data. But if I was a Tier 1, I didn't know that, I would just pass this information to Tier 2. Tier 2 will be a more knowledgeable trained analyst that will be able to determine that. That maybe that analyst doesn't know about black POS, and he needs to be educated on black POS. Well, QAdvisor is also able to find references to documentation online about this particular campaign. And it will point you to documents related to this particular campaign. So I pull this one from Trade Micro, and it shows me, okay, this is a white paper done in the actual malware. Now, this is information that that not only my Tier 2 can use, but now my Tier 3 can use. this normally would have taken one of these teams a lot of time to produce and analyze. And Kubernetes Advisor was able to provide this to the analysts very fast, very concise, and be able to show the connections. Okay, and with that, I am going to pass it back to Vijay.
Vijay, are you on mute? Sorry, yes, I was on mute. So thank you, Carlos. And what should have been apparent from this demonstration is that with Advisor, we are empowering analysts to accelerate their activities and arrive at more accurate and complete decisions in their investigative process. What we've been able to do is, over the past year or so, work with customers in various industries across multiple geographies and try to start documenting the value proposition from and quantify that value across the 3 gaps that we identified in the cognitive security study. We have been able to start bringing significant amounts of knowledge in our knowledge graph that Watson for Cybersecurity maintains and keeps fresh. There's over 10 billion security information points. And we are now being able to, it's not just about having that information, but being able to channel that to an analyst when they're working on something. And that drives that greater speed. We have seen a number of partners and customers accelerate their threat investigations up to 60x faster than they have ever done before. Of course, it depends on their organizational settings and others, but 10 to 60x is the range that we have been able to see for many of our customers. Accuracy. By having a much broader context of a security incident, we are now able to help organizations have peace of mind. They're able to see indicators that they have not been able to do manually, whether it's because of time. And one of the interesting things is we found that when an analysis is done manually, they might tend to stop investigating when they arrive at an interim answer. Whereas with Advisor and Watson for Cybersecurity, we have the power to investigate all potential paths in the investigative process, ask all the questions all the time. This is our goal. Our goal is to improve the responsiveness of your SOC with Curator Advisor and QRadar. We have, our goal is on reducing the risk that organizations encounter with the growing volume and sophistication of threats. We encourage you to try out Advisor. We are still, given that it is a cognitive solution, we're constantly teaching it new incidents to investigate, growing its knowledge base and its understanding of security. And so we welcome your feedback. Try it out for 30 days with QRadar Advisor. It's easy to install, 15-minute deployment time or less, and you'll be able to experience the value of QRadar yourselves. Thank you very much. And now we'll move into the Q&A section of this webinar.
Thanks, Vijay. I'd just like to
Well, guys, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them out in the chat and we'll take them. We already have a few questions which we'll take them now. While I'm answering those questions, if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. We have a question which says, how cybersecurity address digital divide in SOC nations? Well, the greatest example in this case, to be frank, is our older generation. In the sense, when my mom and dad came online, started accessing the internet, they weren't aware of the different type of security threats that are present in this World Wide Web. We are talking about digital divide. Well, when we go to a village, when people who have just been able to access a smartphone with a 4G network, they are not aware of what they should post. So they start receiving emails which says, oh, you won a lottery and click on this link. That's a telltale thing of phishing attack. They click on that link and their phone gets affected. So that is where cybersecurity is important, and that is where cybersecurity takes care. I wouldn't say takes care, but helps to mitigate some of the security threats that happen in digitally divided SOC nations. Another question that we have is, what are the top 3 questions to identify a security services opportunity? Well, so frankly speaking, where we start from is we look at what is your present security posture. Now that's a pretty open-ended question. What's your present security posture? How do you mitigate? How do you identify security threats? How do you analyze security threats, and how do you remediate that security threats? I'll place it in this way. Those are the 3 main questions that you will ask for any security services opportunity. That will be the starting point, and then later, based on the answers that you get, you would be taking that forward. There is another question which says, during the trial, is there any limitation on the features? No, not at all. This is a 30 days completely free trial period for Watson. After 30 days, if you want to renew the license, then you can very well get in touch with us as in your sales representative from IBM. But while using your trial period, that will be a full-fledged Watson analytics capability that you will get for your QRadar deployment. Okay, then we have another question, how to block an IP address in browser. Well, I'm going to say there are different methods for doing that. Since we are talking about QRadar, within QRadar itself, you can create a custom action which can block an IP address at your gateway or let's say, at your firewall. We have got something known as a QRM also, which can do something on similar grounds. We can give you those details, but today, we are mostly focusing on Watson. So, yeah. There is another question which says, with QRadar in place, do we still need CASB solution for protecting cloud services? CASB is a Cloud Access Security Broker. To tell you the truth, so here's the deal. Now, in our network, I'll try to put an analogy over here. In our network, we have firewalls, we have our network intrusion prevention systems, our switches, routers, everything highly secured. We have for identity management solutions, we have different identity management solutions to take care of different identity-based threats. Now, what QRadar, or not only QRadar, for that matter, any SIM brings to the table is another extra layer of intelligence, taking care of those security threats which somehow have bypassed your defenses. They might have compromised your defenses. Let's say in your reverse proxy, you have defined saying that this type of you have done a URL filtering. But somehow, because the URL name has changed or the proxy has been compromised, someone is able to enter your network. This extra layer of intelligence in the form of QRadar, together with cognitive intelligence that Vijay and Carlos was talking about, this will help you detect such threats and mitigate those type of threats. We have a few more questions. Does this also take care of cognitive security piece? Absolutely. I'm going to say Watson for cyber. Watson is our cognitive intelligence. As Vijay was explaining, the way we are continuously training or feeding data to Watson, it is capable, it is looking at structured as well as unstructured data, normal English language written data. Let's say a security blog that has been written by a security professional, that is also read by Watson. Read by Watson as in fed into Watson. So yes, so the Watson for cybersecurity that Vijay was talking about is what cognitive intelligence in cybersecurity is. Okay. I have heard one question, but I'm not very sure I understood this question. I'll read out the question. Changes ISP via portability, changes mobile, so you can't trace IME number. How can you handle this if some damage done before this can be traced? I'm not sure I got your question, but still I'll try. I understand that you are saying, you know, we have number portability, so our number is changing, right? Our phone numbers, I'm going to say our phone number stays the same, but our service providers change. But our IMEI number stays the same. So I'm going to say we can still track a person. I'm going to say I can, in fact, for that matter, change the SIM card itself. Forget about keeping the same number. I'm going to change my number, but my IMEI number on my handset stays the same. I'm not very sure I understood the question. If you can, you know, explain that a bit, then I guess I can give you a better answer. Okay, then there's another question. An attacker can do advanced phishing scamming attacks with help of, absolutely, internationalized domain names, homograph attacks. It is not an uneasy task to register a domain name as google.com with http google.com. In order to see the difference, just copy paste the both links in web application. I'm not sure I understood was there a question? I think someone was answering someone else, if I'm not sure. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so the question was, with QRadar in place, do we still need CAS solution for protecting cloud services? As I was mentioning, I think this question has been from another one. Yes, as I was saying, this puts in an extra layer of intelligence. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely. You would still need our QRadar for cloud. That's a solution that we have in place, which will be monitoring all your cloud-based applications. So even though you might have a CAS-based solution, but you would still have another layer of intelligence in the form of QRadar for cloud use. Okay, any other questions that you guys have? Okay, I've got a question which is, how can trace the endpoint if footpath been removed? I think you are referring to the case of where you had mentioned about mobile number changes. I'm still not sure I got the question. So if you're saying, okay, let me take an example. Feel free to say that, you know, that's not the question that you're trying to ask. So let's say I'm a guy who is new onto mobile phone, and I have ported I was using, let's say a particular service provider for the last 1 year, and then I port my number to another service provider. Will it be feasible for any security analyst to trace back my activities? Let's say I've done some sort of bad stuff on the network, on the internet. Let's say I've done some sort of attack. and I've kept that same handset with me. All I've done is I've just ported my number, keeping the same number in place, to another service provider. Again, whenever we are talking about mobile device security, we've got from IBM, we've got solutions like Max 360, and there are other solutions as well. For a particular mobile device, we generally try to lock to the IMEI number, which does not change irrespective of whether you change the SIM card or whatever it is. So your connectivity to the internet will be connected to the internet would be based on not only IMEI number but as well as your MAC address, which will never change irrespective of whether you are going to change the service provider or whatever it is. MAC address is the hardware number, right? Hardware address for your mobile device, which is using which you are connecting to the internet. So that will never ever change, unless of course you are changing the mobile device itself. Quick note, after the session, if you have any questions, feel free to send those questions to response@in.ibm.com. I think I'll just paste that in the chat itself for everyone, so that if you have any questions later, you can, of course, send them in.
So ladies and gentlemen, at this time, if you wish to ask any audio question, you may press 0 and 1 on your telephone keypad. Alternatively, you may send your questions using the chat panel, which is appearing in the right-hand side of your web console. So at this time, we have no more questions here. I would like to turn the program back to you, Mr. Chakravarti, for any final or closing comments.
Thank you. As I said, guys, if you have any questions that come up in your mind later, feel free to send them to response@in.ibm.com, and we would be more than happy to help you out with your questions. And if you need any more information about any of the solutions that we have talked about during this session itself, again, feel free to get in touch with us, and we would be more than happy to help you out in those solutions, deploying the solutions, as well as having a discussion on selling those solutions as well. Thank you. Thanks to everyone for attending the session. Hope to meet you guys again very soon on another session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chakravarti. On behalf of IBM, I would like to thank all the participants for joining this webinar. Would request all the participants to kindly fill in the feedback form post this session, which will automatically appear on your screen. We hope it has been a useful time spent with us. So thank you everyone for joining in. Wish you all a great day ahead. You may all disconnect your lines now. Thank you very much.